In this journey called life, there are so many things that will definitely happen and are happening that we do not understand and cannot unravel. But then, it is so much of important that we talk about them so that we can learn from them going forward. That in its simplest term is what we call maturity. That is when you are able to learn from what you go through today, and then make the necessary changes to your life. Hello brothers and sisters, welcome to yet another mind-boggling episode of Confession here on Dangerous African Confessions HD. We are going to listen to a story about how a lady got herself into taking hard drugs, which was as a result of her being involved with her husband's son and having a child for him. I will entreat you all to pay much attention to the message our dear sister has for us all. I wouldn't want to take much of your time, so let us all go and listen to what our dear mother has for us.
Hello brother, I greet you all and your lovely followers as well as listeners. I am a broken woman, who is picking up the pieces of my life together to see what this thing called life has for. I have a mix of bitter and sweet story of my life to talk to you about. I want you to share with your audience, so they may have some advice from what I have been through and done. Before I start telling you my story, I want to say that I am not proud of the things or the life I have lived prior to this day that I am having this conversation with you. But I have to realize that it is all a part of the journey called life. And one must pass through some of these things to be able to tell a beautiful story someday, either here or in the afterlife. I got married very early to my husband. He was much older than I was. At the time of my marriage to him, I had completed secondary school and had spent about a year or two in the house. Even though I did pass my secondary education final exams, there was no money to further my education. So I had to stay home and find something else to do. This was not what I wanted, but there was nothing that I could do, since there was not much money to see me through the university. That practically saw my dream being shattered right in my face. So, I told myself that I wouldn't stay home and do nothing. For that reason, I decided to start some business for myself. I borrowed some small amount of money from a friend and I started an Indomie business, where I did sell the food at night. I did this for about 8 months or so. And things began to take shape as far as the business was concerned. So after about a year into my food business, a man came to buy food one night and he asked for my number, after I had finished serving him. Looking at him, he was about 40 getting to 50 years of age. He kept coming to my joint for food. Sometimes, he will come and have a conversation with me without buying food. And even if he does not buy anything from me, he will still give me money. This went on for a while and he asked where I lived. Not thinking bad about him, I did showed him where I lived. And he will not just come to where I was selling the food, but then, he will also sometimes come to my house to look for me. There was this day that I believe he went to the house and met my father, where he was able to convince my father to give my hand in marriage to him. I honestly didn't know the promise or what he and my father agreed on, which led my father to agree to his proposal. So whether I loved him or not, was never a part of the conversation. My father always said that my marriage to him will put me in a class where I will not have to suffer like I did. And he will also see to it that I go back to the university just as I had wanted. That was how I met my husband and got married to him. A man who was twice my age, or even more than that. But due to life difficulties, I had to agree to such a marriage. Which also saw that my parents were able to do something meaningful for themselves. So I ended up in his house as his wife. And then he made sure I enrolled in the university to pursue my degree. But then, because of the big age difference between us, I never really saw him as a husband, but then, I always saw him to be my father. Because he was in the same age group as my father. I remember anytime we had to go to bed as married couples and do what married couples do, I honestly didn't feel like I was enjoying it. Because I didn't see him to be a husband, but like a father. And there are things that I wanted when it comes to the bed game that he wasn't good at. Fast forward, he traveled and he was to spend like about 6 months. He made me call for my younger sister to live with me whilst he was away. And in the house, we have a gate man and 2 ladies in the house responsible for the day-to-day activities of the house. During the time that he came to my father for my hand in marriage, he made us to understand that he had married before and he has 2 children. And his children are all living with their mother. But then, they do sometimes come to visit him from time to time. But aside that, he lives alone with the people who works in his house. Apparently, he left the house he was living in with his first wife for her, and bought a smaller one where he was living till he got married to me. So during this time I was going to the university, there was this particular guy that I became close with. The thing is that, because I was too young to get married, anytime I will go to school, I take my ring off. So none of the people I became close with knew I was married. I became so close with this new guy that I could practically spend a whole day with him without realizing that it was getting late. I knew I liked the guy, but I was too scared to open up to him about my feeling because obviously I was married. But then one day, after we had gone to buy food to eat, he held my hand and I could just feel my heart getting out of my body, just by him holding my hand. He looked at me in the eyes and before I knew it, he kissed me. It felt so good that I also kissed him back. He then told me that he liked me a lot, but was scared to say it, because he feared he might lose me as a friend if he tells me of how he feels about me. Each and every day, the feeling we feel for each other grows. And so one day, he invited me to his house. I was anticipating when he was going to make love to me, because the way I had gotten so much in love with this guy was something I can never explain to you. Honestly, when I am in the guy's company, I totally forget the fact that I am married. So that day when he invited me to his house, I didn't think twice about it, and I said yes to him. That day in his house, he made a beautiful love to me and I enjoyed every bit of it. I didn't want to leave his place, but then he wasn't living alone, and so I had no option than to go back to my house. Our relationship went on for weeks and it turned into months. Anytime he asked to come to my house, I told him that my father does not want guys coming into our house, and so at the right time when things are okay, I will take him there. Our relationship grew to a point where even when my husband returned from his trip, I didn't care anymore. When I go to the campus, I will make sure I do what I wanted to do with this my new love before I will return home. I didn't care whatever went on in the house. This went until my husband one day asked me if there was something specifically that he has done wrong to me. He said I should tell him so he can apologize. The more he wanted to know what the problem was, the more he irritated me. When we can't meet in their house too, we sometimes will meet in hotels and then do satisfy our desires for each other. This went on for about a year when I saw that I was pregnant. One will say that was my husband even responsible for my pregnancy. The possibility was there, because even when I was sleeping with this guy, I was also sleeping with my husband. The only difference is that I was enjoying this guy's intimacy more than my own husband. Because I was sexually attracted to this guy more than my husband. Reason why I even was sleeping with my husband was because that was a part of my responsibilities as a wife. And I didn't want him to also suspect anything. I told my husband about the pregnancy and he was happy that I could get pregnant for him. He had 2 children with his first wife. And all of them were boys, so it was obvious he was praying for this one to be a girl. When we talk of pampering, I really got to experience what pampering was all about. Anything I would ask from him, he would just make it available for me. Because of my pregnancy, I told my guy that I will be traveling to my hometown for some few days. So after about a week, I called him and told him that I wouldn't be coming back to campus because I had deferred my course because of some issue back at home. He always wanted to really know where I was so he could come to visit me, but anytime he asked me, I will lie to him. After about a year after I had given birth, I returned back to the school, and funny enough he still wanted us to continue from where we stopped. But knowing very well what was happening to me, I agreed, but anytime he requested we meet, I told him one lie or the other. The thing is that I wanted to just be and see if I could make this marriage work for the better. Because when I told my husband about my pregnancy and throughout that period, till I delivered, the things that this man did for me, I felt Kay had not done well, and so I wanted to just get back on track and do better. One day my husband came home and asked me a very strange question. Something that he had never asked before. He asked me if there was any chance that I had been seeing someone apart from him. I was shocked that he asked me that question. But then, I composed and comported myself in a way that I did not give myself away. I lied and told him I had never done that ever since we got married. He looked at me and asked if I was very sure of what I was saying. After that day, he didn't ask me anything like that again. So I was thinking maybe I have been able to convince him about the issue. The thing that started making me worried was the fact that my child, who was also a male child, had started growing just in the image of my guy back in school. This was making me confused, that maybe the child could be for my guy. But then, there was no way I was going to do myself this harm by bringing this up. At least to me, I was covering up my secret. One day this guy called me that it was urgent that we meet somewhere and have some discussion. So I met him and he asked me if I knew someone with the surname of my husband. I told him I don't. He then mentioned his full name and asked me if I knew anyone by that name. I told him I don't know anyone who carries such a name. I asked him why and he said that he had seen someone in the company of the said man who resembles me. But if I say I don't know him, it is okay. He then told me that he had some meeting to catch up with some friends. So he got up and walked away without even touching me or anything. What could be the issue? Why is my husband asking me about cheating and this guy also asking me about my husband? Could this guy be someone who knows my husband or does he have any connection with my husband? This is something that I had to try and find out before it was too late.
Don't forget to please subscribe, share and like our videos. Kindly hit the notification bell so you will be the first to get notification to our videos when we upload. Like I always say, these are not just stories for story's sake. They are meant for us not to make these mistakes our brothers and sisters are making. That's why we share these stories with you. After listening to this story, I will say that I leave everything to our viewers to foment and share their experiences with us, or if only you have experienced something like this. Again, I would like to stress that we do not have any other motive on this channel. We do share with you these stories of confessions done by our brothers and sisters, so that we can take one or two lessons from these confessions. Because maturity comes by making informed decisions on things that do happen to us in life. And even if it had not happened to you but then it has happened to someone out there, you can take a lesson from it so you also don't make same mistakes in going forward. This channel is aimed at helping us to discover our true purpose of why we came here on this earth. And learning from such situations can help us reach there. Listening to our dear sister, it is obvious she got into marriage at this age where she does not have any experience in life. And so, making mistakes were something that she couldn't have walked away from. But the most important thing is what you do after when a mistake is made. That is where the issue is. The things you do when your first mistake is done. Either you continue to be in that mistake or you will be able to come out of that mistake and learn from it. I just hope that we honestly take the important lessons from these stories to better our lives and decisions. I pray that we learn from some of these stories and live a better life. If not for anything at all, it pays to live a decent and better life. Stay blessed and be safe. Thanks for being a part of this growing family. Kindly share your thoughts with us in the comment section below. And if you are new here, please subscribe, like and share.